Okay, Marianne, go ahead.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm Marianne Dorner, and I'm co-hosting tonight with Ellen Tiberi. I would like to thank you for joining the presentation given by our special guest, Dr. Paul Connett. Many of us know Paul from his work with the science team at No Burn Broom, and I'd like to share some more details about Paul's life and career. He grew up in England and obtained his bachelor's degree from Cambridge University. He came to the USA in 1966 and started a PhD at Cornell. Then his life was overtaken by the Vietnam peace movement. He met his wife, Ellen, in New York City in 1968 while working on the Biafran campaign. They were married in 1970 and then returned to Europe. Paul and Ellen came back to the US in 1979. Paul completed his PhD in chemistry at Dartmouth College in 1983. He taught chemistry at St. Lawrence University in Canton, New York from 1983 until he retired in 2006. His specialty was environmental chemistry and toxicology. He has been engaged in waste management since 1985 and has actively promoted a zero waste strategy since 1999, primarily in Italy, which he has visited 85 times and has spoken in over 300 communities there. In 1987, Ralph Nader said of Paul, quote, "He is the only person I know who can make waste interesting," end quote. British actor Jeremy Irons said of Paul, quote, "Paul is perhaps the world expert on the problems and solutions of garbage reduction and reuse, and his book and its contained wisdom will, I hope, become compulsory reading for anyone whose home is threatened by plans to build incinerators or to site landfills, or who cares about leaving the world in a fit state for future generations," unquote. And now I invite Dr. Paul Connett to speak with us. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Marianne. And thank you, Ellen, for looking after the technical side of things. I'm going to bring up my PowerPoint in a moment, but just to share with you the reason for this talk. Since No Burn Broom was successful in stopping this dreadful lithium-ion battery recycling incineration plant, we wanted now to turn to from a successful campaign of saying no to something. We now want No Burn Broom wants to say yes to something. We want positive and safe development for Endicott and for Broome County. And this is by way of kicking off this new campaign. We haven't come up with a name yet, so anybody on this call who would like to come up with a name for us, we want it to be positive. We want, if possible, to stress that it's positive economic development we're looking for, which is both safe and effective. So I will now bring up my PowerPoint. If I am successful, there we go. This should work. And I should say here. How are we doing? Is that full screen?
Looks good, Paul.
Okay. All right. So there are the 10 steps towards zero waste ideas. And I do mean ideas. Look, this isn't a prescription for every single thing we should be doing, nor am I suggesting for one moment that Broome County is not doing a lot of good things. You are doing a lot of good things. I think there's more that can be done. And these are ideas, and particularly they're ideas where we can create some good jobs. We need those good jobs in good businesses. Now, on the screen, you can see my email address, pconnett@gmail.com. If by any chance you want a copy of this book, and I'm not here to make money, this book I got very cheaply. It was on sale for a time. I got 50 or so copies. If you'd like a copy, a donation of $5 or more, whatever, will go towards this new group. A new group always needs money for mailings and whatever you have to do. It's better that we have a little fund rather than some individual who comes up with an idea then has to go and fork out to pay for that idea. There will be a little fund. So if you want a copy of this book, just email me here and I'll tell you where I live, and you can come and hopefully collect it, which will save on postage. Alrighty. So off we go, I hope. There we go. There's a copy of the book again. This was published in 2013. The full title, The Zero Waste Solution, Untrashing the Planet, One Community at a Time. This is a bottom-up movement, a grassroots movement, which essentially grew out of the anti-incineration movement worldwide. One of my great joys was being able to present a copy of this book to the Pope, who has said some very good things about what should be happening with the planet. And I was happy to tell him about how successful recycling has been, zero waste has been in Italy. So I'll be talking about two things, the big picture, and then the 10 steps to zero waste with examples from around the world. So starting with the global picture, we're living on this planet as if we had another one to go to. I think this picture sums it up pretty well. We're eating the planet, we're devouring the planet like a giant hamburger. That was taken from this book by George Ritzer. We would need 5 planets if everyone consumed as much as the average American. Meanwhile, India, China, and many other countries are copying this consumption pattern, this overconsumption pattern. So something has got to change. And I think the best place to start that change is with waste. Why? Because every day, everybody makes waste. And we're part of a non-sustainable way of living on the planet. But with good leadership, we could all be part of living on this planet in a sustainable way, or at least moving towards that. We're not going to get there right away, but we can move in the right direction. We have to, this is the parlance now used, particularly in Europe, we have to convert a linear economy to a circular economy. And to explain the linear economy, you start with the extraction of raw materials, you ship them around the world, you manufacture new products, you ship more transport, you consume those products, and then you produce waste. Now, this is, for some reason, this seems to have frozen on me. I don't know why. Okay, where we come in is that consumption part of things. And it's stimulated, particularly by advertising on television. In America, every 7 minutes, they tell you you're hungry, you're thirsty, you need something, you need to lose weight, you need some drug, you need a new car every 7 minutes. It's quite exhausting. Now, over-advertising then produces over-consumption. By the time a high school student has left school in the United States, he or she will have watched over 350,000 TV commercials. They are programmed for an over-consuming lifestyle. Now, the myth is the more you consume, the happier you become. And we're exporting that myth all over the world. The reality is the more you consume, the fatter you become and the more waste you produce. So now I'm going to be a bit more serious. How do the different ways of handling waste impact this linear economy? Well, let's start with landfilling. If you bury your waste, then anything you bury, you've got to go back to square one and start all over again. In other words, there's no mitigation of the linear economy. There is no movement towards a circular economy if we keep landfilling. Similarly with incineration or gasification, whatever name you're going to use, if you burn something, if you destroy something, again, you've got to go back to the beginning. So both incineration and landfilling perpetuate this linear economy. It's the way it is propped up. Now, on the other hand, if you recycle materials, you cut out extraction of raw materials and shipping them around the world. and you cut back on the impacts that all those things have on our planet. If you reuse the whole object, the product, then you cut out the impacts of both extraction and production. And similarly with organics, if you compost them, again, you cut back on the production of synthetic fertilizers, and there are many other benefits of composting. More about that later. Now, this is an artistic vision of what we need to do. This is from a group in England called RAP. They're very good. You see the linear economy on the left-hand side, and there, at the right-hand side, you see the circular economy. And the two key steps in going from the linear economy to the circular economy is cutting back on the extraction of raw materials and cutting back on residual waste. So, in my view, having spent 35 years fighting incinerators, the waste problem will not be solved with magic machines, but with better organization, better education, and better industrial design. Nature makes no waste. It's a human invention. We need to design waste out of the system. So zero waste. To achieve or get close to zero waste, we need community responsibility at the back end, at the disposal end, and we know we can get that. There are many examples, terrific examples around the world where communities are doing a great job. Secondly, we need industrial responsibility at the front end. And again, in industry, we have some great examples of companies that are making durable goods like copy machines and cars and video machines and so on, are doing a terrific job with zero waste. It's the disposal products that are the big concern, the industries which make throwaway single-use plastics. They're the big curse at the moment. We need good political leadership to bring these two responsibilities together and also involve universities. We need the brightest minds in our society focusing on waste. It's a very important subject for any student, any professor in my mind. So now the practicalities, 10 steps to zero waste. I believe they are fairly simple, they're cost effective, and they are happening in every single step is happening somewhere on this planet. And nearly all of them produce jobs, exactly what Endicott needs. Now, there are the 10 steps in one shot. And the good news is, looking at it, you know that Broome County is already involved in several of those steps, in source separation, in door-to-door collection. Not too much in composting. I think that's an area for improvement. Recycling, yes. Binghamton has had a very aggressive recycling program ever since you beat the incinerator that was proposed in Kirkwood. Step 5, community reach and reuse. Yes, we've got examples of Goodwill Industry, Salvation Army, and so on. Those are what I view as retail operations. We need a wholesale operation. We need a very large community operating reuse operation. More about that later. Zero Waste Research Center, I think that's something that could be introduced in Binghamton, in Endicott, in Broome County. Banning single-use plastics, that's happening everywhere in the world. And I think that, again, Broome County can be involved in that. Step 8, pay as you throw for residuals. That's exactly what we have. When you go to the supermarket and buy the blue bag for your residuals, that the rest, the stuff that you can't recycle, that is a pay as you throw system. Then something for Broome County, which you don't have, we have a landfill, but I advocate putting in front of that landfill a residual separation and biological stabilizing operation. And finally, we need a landfill as backup, but it's a controlled landfill. You control what goes in, so it's smaller and safer. And the idea is that you are trying every which way with those 9 steps to reduce as much as possible how much goes in by 2030. So going through those steps one at a time. Step 1, source separation. It's these 10 things which make waste, these 10 fingers at the end of our hands. If we mix everything together, that's waste. If, on the other hand, those 10 things are organized to separate, then we have resources. And one of the most important things to separate is the organic waste. We need the organics clean so that we can use that in agriculture. You literally can double your diversion rates if you introduce curbside collection of food waste. The second step, of course, which we have is door-to-door collection. This is what it looks like. Again, let me stress, you need door-to-door collection because that's the only way you can get the organic fraction, the food waste, etc., clean. And you need it clean if you want to use it in agriculture. In San Francisco, their door-to-door collection system is like this. Once a week, they pick up from everybody's house and from every business and every restaurant, every hotel, 3 containers. One for the mixed recyclables, one for the compostables, and one for the residuals. Very easy. In fact, the bus shelters in San Francisco said, recycling is now as easy as 1, 2, 3, with pictures of these 3 containers. Make it as convenient and as simple as possible for people. Again, I don't know, every in Italy, they have a, not everywhere, but a more elegant system. They've moved away from the idea in Italy for a long, long time. The typical way of getting your trash was to walk out of your house, walk 50 yards and dump it into big containers at the side of the road, very ugly containers which overflowed. It made the place look awful. Then they got more progressive and they made gray containers, green containers, yellow containers, orange containers for the different components. And then they started to come up with door-to-door collection for the first time. And the people that propelled that were the farmers. The farmers near Milan went to the Agricultural Institute and said to the agricultural professors, look, we need more organic material for our soil. Where can we get it from? And Enzo Favorino, who worked there and has become a major player in zero waste, said, well, there's plenty of organic material in the municipal waste stream, but you can only use it in agriculture if you get it clean. And the only way you can get it clean is porta a porta, door-to-door collection. Well, they started to do this and it was amazing. They were getting 60% reduction in what was going to landfill or incineration within a year. And it was saving money. But it works like this, in this particular case. The same trucks, no more trucks, no different drivers, but picking up different materials, different days of the week. A very elegant system. And when you're in these towns, you can tell which day it is because you can see the color of the container. If it's white, it must be Wednesday because they're picking up the paper. They've copied this in Spain, particularly in Basque Country and Barcelona area. And in this one particular community, in Anani, in Basque Country, you see the same system, different days, picking up different materials. And here you see me in Anani, that's the mayor in white, Louise, and you see their system, the containers that they use for the different materials, separated materials, has a different color, and they hang them on hooks, and each family has a number. You see this one, Hero 1870, that number is on the hook, and it's on all their containers, and that household is the only household that's allowed to use that hook. And if you don't have a large wall, as in this community, you can do it with stainless steel posts, the same idea. And believe me, when you see a community like this, you say, this community really cares. It's far from being an eyesore, it's very attractive. Now in Castelnuovo, Sicily, they had a problem because in this community, it was very steep streets, very narrow streets and very steep. So they had to develop a special collection system. And here it is. It was the Ragusa donkey. And this man goes up and down these narrow streets with the donkey, one panel for the organics, one for the recyclables. And the citizens, they love these donkeys. They feed them and they just love them. And the tourists, they love these donkeys. And there's a lovely human story here because this man in charge of the donkey and collecting the separated materials, he was an alcoholic. He missed many days from work until he got this donkey, until he had the tourists and the citizens just loving this donkey. He hasn't missed a day since, or at least that was a few years ago when I was told this story. He's a very happy man. And there's a message here. And the message here is that zero waste is not just about recovering material resources. It's about recovering human resources. People need jobs, yes, but they also need respect. And unfortunately, many people in the waste industry are not respected. People look down at these people, particularly in places like Brazil, where literally there were 1 million people, men, women, and children, going to the landfill, very dangerous job, picking up glass and plastic, and making a good living, incidentally, but men, women, and children, dangerous job. And the kids aren't going to school. And so what has happened in Brazil is that these waste pickers, or catadores, have been organized in cooperatives, and they've negotiated with the government to allow them to pick up waste door to door. So here you see a catador, see the woman there is handling him the mixed recyclables, and they have these fairly sophisticated carts. Some of them are electric, and they take these to large warehouses where more catadores are separating these materials into the necessary quality for industry. And then you see them weighing the materials and then sending them off to market. So now these catadores are involved in every level of collecting the material and getting it to market, earning a good living, safer working conditions, and their kids are going to school, and some of their children have already gone to university. It's very exciting. And there are equally inspiring examples of moving waste pickers from the informal sector to the formal sector. Another very good example is Buenos Aires in Argentina. The Philippines has very good examples. India, Colombia. In India, the waste pickers make methane. They take the organic waste and make biogas used for home cooking and so on. And other examples in Colombia, Indonesia, many more. Now, there was something a couple of days ago in the paper, Gaia. Gaia is the Global Alliance for Incineration Alternatives. They came into existence in 2000 in South Africa. All the groups fighting incinerators in many different countries. And they formed this group and very quickly moved to adopt a zero waste strategy. But in my mind, one of the things they did was to recognize the plight of the waste pickers and organize the waste pickers and give them respect. They've actually got some of these waste pickers to go to conferences and speak to some of the professors in other countries. So the latest report from Gaia shows that you can create a huge number of jobs with a zero waste strategy, 200 times more than landfills and incinerators. Again, Endicott needs some jobs. All right, there we go. Step 3, composting. Now, according to the World Bank, composting would decrease solid waste in developing countries by 50 to 80%. In the United States, maybe 30 to 40%. As I said, it can double your diversion rate and save a lot of money. Now, there's a hierarchy with take food waste. The first thing we should be doing is we should feed people. And I'm sure many of you know we waste a huge amount of food in the United States and other Western countries. In the United Kingdom, they've got groups, which this group is called Fair Share, and volunteers are organized to pick up food from restaurants and from supermarkets when the due date is near, and they get this to homeless people, shelters, and so on. It's very inspiring, it's very practical. Who would deny that that's a better way than putting this stuff in landfills to make methane and pollution? Going back to the hierarchy, after feeding people, we need to feed animals. After feeding animals, we need to feed the soil. I love to say we need healthy soil to produce healthy food, produce healthy people and healthy communities and healthy countries and a healthy planet. It all begins with the soil, completing nature's cycle. Now, as far as the composting hierarchy is concerned, do as much as you can locally. And I think that's the Broome County approach, because they make the home composting kits 50% of cost. You can go to the landfill in Broome County and at half price, get one of these home composters. We can vouch for those. We've been using them for 4 or 5 years now, very successful. We need to do that in backyards, on-site, nursing homes, hospitals, schools, universities. There's all kinds of low technologies, low-tech operations which can do this. Community composting. We have some wonderful examples of community composting around the world. My favorite is Zurich. Zurich, Switzerland has 1,000 community compost piles, which are looking after 50% of the discarded organic waste in Zurich, a major European capital. Citizens doing everything. The city is not even involved. On farms, this is another source of income for farmers. If we can say, look, farmers, we've got some clean organic waste, which we can vouch for its cleanliness because we have this door-to-door collection. Can you do some composting on your farm? If you can, we'll pay you a diversion cost because we won't be sending it to landfill. And you can also earn some money by co-composting with your farm manure and get a better grade of compost that you can sell. And then after all that's been done, you need a centralized composting facility or anaerobic digestion. The difference between the two, composting is breaking down organic matter with plenty of air. It's an oxidation process. Anaerobic digestion is breaking down organic material in the absence of the air, and in the product, the gaseous product for that is methane or biogas. Examples. Here's community composting in a small community in Prestine, Wales. Here you see the volunteers taking the compost that's been made and taking it to community gardens. And there you see the harvest of this thing, and they share the products with the community. Again, very, very positive. And I'm happy to say that in Broome County, we have Vines Community Gardens. My wife and I help with that. We're very excited by the Vines operations. If you don't know about it, you rent a plot enough to grow, tomatoes and peppers and stuff, potatoes. It's $10 for the whole growing season. It's a good bargain. It's great to build communities. And I'm also happy to say that Cornell Agricultural Extension has expertise, which knows all about composting at all kinds of different levels. So if you have any questions about composting, they're the place to go to. And one of the things I hope will come out of this is we will get a group, this positive group, which says yes to safe and clean development in Broome County. And I would like that to become a coalition which would involve groups like Vines and the Cornell Extension, and Binghamton University, and all the groups that want to see positive things for our lovely area. Now, this is community composting in Bandung, Indonesia. Here you see an activist in the middle. His name is Yobel, and he's taken me to a local park, and the fellow in red is, he's the one that looks after all the composting. He has a whole bunch of different backyard composting kits. He's showing people how they work. This is for yard waste, and this is for food waste. And it's all very exciting. People bring their organic waste to the park. They can also take some of the compost with them. They have a place for dropping off recyclables. They have a playing area for kids. They even have a cooker run on biogas to feed the staff. Now, again, I want to stress this. If you want to use organics in agriculture, we must get them clean. We don't want to compost and then dump the crap in the landfill. We want to compost it and put it in and grow food. And you need to get it clean. You need that door-to-door collection. Now, this is what organic waste looks like in Hernani. Remember in Basque Country? The purity is unbelievable. 99.76% pure. So that's going to make wonderful compost. Any farmer is going to be pleased about that. Now, in San Francisco, they know that their organic waste is going to go to a composting facility surrounded by farmland. So they know that the best organic waste is going to come from restaurants and hotels. So they have a special educational program to educate the kitchen staff as to what they need in the green container. And the green container is 25% cheaper than a mixed waste container. So the hotels and restaurants save money with this program. And if you go to San Francisco and you go to Fisherman's Wharf, talk to any of the people in the restaurants, either the cook or the servers here, and you will find how excited they are to be part of this program, because they know that this organic waste is going to go to a composting facility, which is surrounded by farmland. And the farmers are using this compost to grow fruit and vegetables, which go back to San Francisco. In addition, 200 vineyards in Sonoma County and Marin County are using the organic waste, the compost produced in San Francisco or by San Francisco for their vineyards. Why? Because it's a very, very hot climate north of San Francisco where the grapes grow, and they have a terrible problem with water during the summer months, as you know. But the beauty of compost is it holds onto moisture and it delivers the moisture slowly to the roots, and it's better than irrigation. And it's a substitute for irrigation, or reduces the amount of irrigation. Here's a typical organic composting operation in Italy. You see how low tech it is. This could be done at any compost. This is from Enzo Favorino. I've mentioned him before. He's on the industrial school near Milan, and he is just one of the most incredible experts functioning in Italy and Europe, promoting zero waste. In Malaysia, I saw some very interesting composting operations. In this shed, this is about 40 miles from Kuala Lumpur. This shed, there's about 150 tons of organic waste in here, including manure, and yet I couldn't smell a thing. So what else is in those troughs other than organic waste? Answer: worms. This is an example of vermiculture, all done with worms. And you can do this in enclosed buildings. And as I said, there is no odor. And it's a very high quality compost. And the worms, of course, can be harvested and used by fishermen for bait. Now, this one really surprised me. I've heard of vermiculture. I've seen it in India, but I hadn't seen this before. This was in an industrial estate. You would think you're in industry, typical small tech operation. Went inside and I found it was using black soldier fly larvae on an industrial scale to convert organic waste into chicken feed and fish food and compost. There are these larvae. They eat voraciously any organic waste that you can give to them. And as I said, this is done on an industrial scale. It's 24,000 square feet. They can handle 20 tons a day. It's all indoors. Again, no smell. Here I am with the shelves. They've stacked these shelves. And in that shelf, you see the black, that's the stuff that exits the larvae. And you see those, what looks like leaves? That is the remainder of watermelons. There's just like a thin skin left over. So they eat everything. Very exciting. And if you want the details, these people will be very, very glad to talk to you. By the way, anybody wants my PowerPoint, you just write to me at pconnett@gmail.com. I can send you a link. We'll probably put a link on our home site as well, noburnbroom.com. Recycling. Well, you know all about that. But in San Francisco, they have this huge facility on Pier 96. And here you see the long lines. This line is separating paper products, and there's another line separating bottles, cans, etc. Now, this company called Recology owns the contract for picking up those 3 containers. So that's worth a lot of money, that contract in San Francisco. And they also own the recycling facility and the composting facility, but they don't own the landfill. So they have no incentive to make money out of waste. They make their money out of recyclables and compostables and, of course, collection. And when they make waste and send it to the landfill, they're sending it to their competitor. So you are looking at a conversion here from a waste management company to a resource management company. And one more thing to say about this company is owned by the workers. These people that are doing this, just like those workers in Brazil and so on, they are making money out of this whole operation. They are shareholders in this business. Step 5, this is by far my favorite step. It's the Community Reuse and Repair and Educational Center. The name keeps changing as we think of more things to do with it. But basically, here's the bottom line, literally a bottom line. Let me move my pictures here just a second. Reusable items. This is an analysis of the Los Angeles discard stream, not waste stream, discard stream. Reusable items, only 2% of the total. So it's small volume, but very high value, notice. That 2% is worth well over a third of the total value of all the discarded materials. So reuse is high value, low volume versus recycling, which is high volume, low value. And that's why it can be so good at creating small businesses and large businesses and lots of good jobs. So here we go, let's do some more. There we go. Urban Ore, this is the prototype. Urban Ore has been running for 30 years. It's operated by Dan Knapp. He's a former professor of sociology, and his wife, Mary Lou DeVenter. They gross $3 million a year, and most of that money goes into 37 full-time, well-paid jobs. Dan is about to retire, and he's handing the company over to his workers. They will own the whole operation. This is what it looks like inside. It's like a shopping mall for secondhand goods. You can get anything there, absolutely anything that you can think of, you can get there, and good stuff. I get a lot of my clothes there. This jacket was $6. This is what's the one I use? Oh God, no. Well, I go to Goodwill and I go to the Salvation Army, but the one we use, what's it called? I'm trying to remember the name. It's got the word shop in it, and then I hear it's going to tell me. What's it? What is it called? Trusty shopper. Yeah, trusty shoppers. Trusty. Something shoppers. Anyway, find one. They're great. They're fine. Now, what they don't have in those small scale operations are the building materials. You need a lot of space for building materials, but building materials are your biggest earner. If you're interested in business and jobs, this is where you're going to earn money, from the doors and windows and appliances and woodwork and you name it. From at one end, you've got cheap plywood doors. At the other end, you've got architectural, but they're worth thousands of dollars at the other end, if you know what you're doing. And Dan Knapp is a specialist in doors. Over in the other side of the country, in Burlington, Vermont, they have a beautiful operation called Resource. It's laid out like any chain store. It looks beautiful. The television sets are working when you go in. You really want to buy some of these things because they're beautifully displayed. There's another operation in Australia. Which city in Australia? I think anyway, in Canberra, Australia. The most fabulous layouts of reusable goods. The way they've done it is they have a whole series of rooms, and like here's the kitchen stuff, and here's the bedroom stuff, and here's the sitting room stuff. So when you go around, it's just like being in Bosco's or something like that. It's just very tempting. And of course, all the appliances. Now they have a lovely scheme in Burlington. If you are unemployed or you're on social services for some reason, they give you coupons. And you can take these coupons to the reuse operation and you can buy essentials. They won't let you buy luxury goods, but you can buy essential goods. And so for people like refugees or unemployed people, this is a godsend. They also take unemployed people, there's government money for this, unemployed people from the street, and they teach them how to repair large appliances, small appliances, electrical goods, computers. Some of them get so good about, they carry on working for resource. And then after 9 months, they give them a certificate, help them to get a job. And I can see that in Endicott. I can see people being trained to do these things. And there are a lot of artisans are in the Endicott area, Broome County, who can repair all kinds of things. They know how to repair furniture, you know, the wickerwork furniture. They know how to re-enamel sinks. They know how to mend shoes and so on. And you could use the reuse and repair operations as a kind of nursery for artisans who can't afford the overheads of a shop, but they could afford to work in the reuse and repair center, and they could just share profits with the operation. Now, this in Burlington, they're also linked to deconstruction, and the materials they take down in deconstruction are either used in new buildings or they are used to make things like furniture, value added. Here you see beautiful furniture made from wood, and some of the wood is beautiful. You take the wood from barns, from churches, church pews, my goodness, it's beautiful furniture. Jobs, 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 jobs. So out of reuse and repair centers, it's a circular economy for reusable objects. This is the circular economy. It's job creation, job training. It's incubating artisan businesses. It's linking to deconstruction and valued enterprises. It's community education. You can demonstrate backyard composting and worm bins, maybe how to bottle food. You know, we're going to have to learn these old ways of storing food. As you all know, I'm sure, if you've ever grown tomatoes in your backyard, for 1 month, you get a huge amount of tomatoes, and you don't know what to do with them. But that's when you should be bottling them and use them throughout the year, or freeze them. It could be a collection depot for household toxics, which have to be looked after carefully, fluorescent bulbs, batteries, waste oil. And again, there's government money for that. So you paid for carefully looking after these items so they get tossed in the trash. And it can be used for community building, recreating the village in the anonymous city. And also, we can have fun. We must have fun. Look, I just can't stand serious environmentalists. If I ever meet an environmentalist with no sense of humor, I just literally run. I want to get out of there because they're so bloody intense, they ruin your lives. Okay, so if you want to have fun, go to Gothenburg, Sweden, where they have this huge park for reuse and recycling. It is fun. When you go in, there's a band playing to welcome you. And when you go round, there's a clown to entertain the kids. And when you go to the toilet, it's an art gallery. You can sit there doing your business and choose a painting. And then there are rock concerts. You know, it's a very big space. It's like a park. So they lay on rock concerts, and the entrance fee is 20 PET bottles. So the kids have to collect these bottles in order to go to the rock concert. So again, it's education and fun. And they also have TV celebrities coming in and valuing your antiques, which is a perfect place to do it at a reuse operation. And finally, this is my favorite. This is the famous Swedish separating dog. This dog can separate mixed recyclables into 6 different categories. And if a dog in Sweden can separate into 6 categories, even some of our recalcitrant citizens here can be persuaded to separate into 3. We're already doing it into 2. We want 1 more. Okay. Now, I got this message today. I got this message today from Neil Selbund, who heads up the Waste to Wealth initiative at the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. I've known Neil for over 30 years. He says, Paul, happy to help out by working on reuse and job creation in the Endicott region. We are doing a webinar of reuse and eco-development in upstate New York on April the 7th with Warren County Zero Waste folks. Most interesting is the Reuse Corridor, a network of 20 groups that are implementing excellent programs in West Virginia, Kentucky, and Ohio. Perfect model for the Endicott region. I will send you an article on this, and we will share it on noburnbroom.com's website. A very important thing is here, in this whole business of waste, whether you're fighting incineration or promoting zero waste, you need to network. You're not alone. Everybody has the same problems, and we need to share ideas, creative ideas. Now, the rest of the steps, 6 to 9, are attempt to minimize the residual fraction. Step 6 is the Zero Waste Research Center. Now, we send a very important message from the community to industry, or we should. An important message from the community to industry, the community to industry. We have to say to industry, look, if we can't reuse it, if we can't recycle it or compost it, industry shouldn't be making it. We need better industrial design for the 21st century. And that's the difference between a zero waste program and just a program which says we need more recycling. It's more than that. It's making industry responsible for the products it produces. And so you can put on one slide now what zero waste is. Zero waste is a combination of community responsibility, reduce, reuse, recycle, the 3 R's plus the C of composting, and industrial responsibility, the 4th R, redesign, redesign. Now, Italy has been the first in many of these things. Rossano Ercolini is a school teacher, and he heads up the zero waste program in Capanari, which is a community near Lucca in Tuscany. And at my urging, he set up a zero waste research center. Here's Rossano in the middle, surrounded by some of his pupils. And here we are looking through the residual fraction in Capanari. And here are some of the local professors carefully going through the different products there. And here's the analysis. The top item was textiles and leather, 16.52% of the residual fraction, which is 17% of the total. They're recycling 83%. So 17% of the residuals is textiles and leather. The second one is panolini. That's not a food item, that's diapers in Italian. And then the third item is kitchen waste. Again, these are all produced feedback messages. In the case of kitchen waste, obviously you need to improve your education because people are putting the kitchen waste in the wrong container. Now, the textiles and leather coming in number 1 prompted them to collect these textiles and leather at their reuse and repair center, and they're now using this material to make things like purses and handbags and shopping bags and things like that. Again, creating jobs. They also are producing in the local area, they've got a manufacturer producing reusable panolini, and the local pharmacies are giving the first one away to new parents. So, and I assure you, it's as easy to change that reusable panolini as it is to change a disposable one. The difference is that the poop and the cellulose material goes into the toilet, whereas the plastic liner is wiped down and a new cellulosic material goes into the center as Velcro strips. Very simple. Now, when they were looking through the residual fraction, they kept coming across these bloody plastic capsules. Now, my wife and I, we used to love this coffee from Lavazza, the Keurig system, your little coffee capsule. You put it in your machine, you press a button, and you get a perfect single cup of coffee, every flavor under the sun, every make under the sun. It is so simple, but it's a metaphor. It's simple, it's convenient, but every time you have a cup of coffee, one of these plastic things ends up in the residuals and in the landfill, or worse still, in an incinerator. And what Capanari did, this is Rossano, wrote to Lavazza and said, look, we're a zero waste community. We're up to 83% diversion, but we keep finding your plastic coffee cup capsules in our residuals. What can you do about this? Well, the next day, they got a phone call from Lavazza and said, look, let our experts meet up with your experts and see if we can come up with a solution. Well, over the last 5 years or so, they've come up with recyclable coffee cups, compostable coffee cups, reusable coffee cups. Oh, and give me a moment, 1 second, 1 second. This is, okay, 1 second. Now, this, ladies and gentlemen, is my favorite. You see that? It's just a stainless steel cup with a handle, which you put into a machine, but you load it with 2 spoons of coffee, ground coffee, put it in. Oh, I'm not on the screen. Oh, okay. Look, when I come back on the screen, I will show you this device. It's very, very simple. Okay, so a zero waste research center. We need to involve local universities. I know that Tom O'Brien is on this call, and I hope some of his students, I hope they will get excited. We want this to involve the universities, but we don't want, Tom, we don't want you to put the center at Binghamton University. We want you to come to Endicott and work in our Zero Waste Research Center, work with our activists. You're gonna love some of those people. You're gonna love George and other people on our science team. They're very creative. They got lots of good ideas. So a combination of activists and professors and students, that's what I want. They will examine the residual fraction, like Kapanri. They will identify non-reusable objects, which come in all the time into reuse operations and non-recyclable materials, and recommend better industrial design. Students can take on a product. How do you design this product better? Research efforts, we need those researchers to look up all the ways that people around the world are banning or taxing single-use plastics. And then also look at all the waste reduction efforts that are going on around the world. I'll just share a few of them with you now. In Ontario, Canada, for 60 years, they've been reusing glass beer bottles. Each bottle goes around 18 times. They have 2,000 people employed washing out these bottles, and it saves a lot of money, a lot of money. So that's a good example. In Italy, they have stores, efficorta, they're called, which allow you to refill your own bottles, shampoo bottles, detergents, they're the detergents, olive oil, and my favorite, of course, vino bianco, vino rosso, and they tell you where the wine has come from. They also refill water, beer, honey, you name it, wonderful. And this idea from Indonesia, a local NGO is selling to its volunteers dispensing systems for detergents and whatever in these bottles. Now, each of these bottles contains 1,000 milliliters. Each of the plastic sachets that people use, especially in poor communities, is 10 milliliters. So each of these bottles keeps 100 plastic sachets out of the Pacific, But the trouble is, if you're living in a poor community, you can't afford a liter of detergent at a time. But if your community has a little store in there, then you can go there and get a few milliliters in your own container and not get these dreadful plastic sachets. In Italy, they're getting plastics out of the cafeteria. This is Rossano's, these are his primary children from a few years ago now. They're probably all grown up by now. Taking out the plastics, glass, ceramic, stainless steel, you know, all those old mature things, all those old fashioned things like glass and ceramic and stainless steel, things which lasted forever. In Italy, they're replacing disposable diapers with reusable diapers. Eco Bimbi is the name of the company. Eco Bimbi, zero waste baby. Banning single-use plastics. All over the world, communities are doing that, banning or taxing plastic bags, straws, bottles, etc. Why? Well, this is why. This is one of the reasons. You see, that bird is an albatross. It flies around the Pacific getting fish. Except it's not catching fish these days, it's catching plastic bottle tops, particularly yellow and red. They like that, they think it's cuttlefish. And these albatrosses are feeding their youngsters literally plastic bottle tops. And we're finding these juvenile albatrosses with their stomachs full of plastic. It's turned people's stomachs. And then it gets even worse. Even the scientists are getting upset because of the microplastics, which are building up in the aquatic food chain. Some people estimate we'll have more plastics in the food chain than fish a few years from now. It's disgusting. Something has got to change, and it certainly is mobilizing people around the world. And I'm frozen again. I have to click. Go there. So India has banned literally all disposable plastic in Delhi. UK is banning these plastic microbeads. Costa Rica has banned styrofoam, and so on and so on and so on. There's very many examples. Bangladesh has banned plastic bags. Economic incentives, the pay-as-you-throw system. We have that. There's no surcharge for the recyclables. There is no surcharge for the organics. But of course, there is a surcharge for the residual fraction. We go to our supermarket and buy those blue bags. The more you make, the more you pay. I like to think of it, the less you make, the less you pay. The less you make, the more you save. In Seattle, they just give people the option of a small solid container for residuals, a medium size or large size, but the bigger size you choose for your monthly collection, the more you pay. In Italy, they have these bags with microchips in them. You only pay when you put the bag out. If you could store up your residuals for a month, you only pay once a month instead of once a week or once every 2 weeks. So you can save money. So how close are we getting to zero waste using these steps 1 through 8? In Italy, the figures are astounding. These are from 2017. 40 provinces out of 108 are above 65% diversion. That means diversion from every form of disposal. The 4 best are over 80%. Treviso, which is a province near Venice, population 1 million, at 88%. 1 million people getting 88% diversion. Nearly 3,000 communities are getting 70% diversion. Over 1,000 getting 80%. Some are even over 90%. I love talking about Italy in Endicott because there's such a strong Italian community there, and I can't wait for the party that comes later on in the year. Another way of measuring the residuals is how much you make per person, and there's equally impressive figures with that. This has been recognized in Europe. This is Commissioner Veja heads up the, I think, the European Environmental Commission. He makes reference to the zero waste schemes in Campania, Treviso, and Parma as living examples of operational implementation of principles tabled in the circular economy package. This is their document. This is about the circular economy and stressing the zero waste program. And here you see how, starting in Italy, how they are influencing surrounding countries from Austria to Spain, to France, Romania, even Slovakia, Slovenia, and so on. Very, very exciting. In San Francisco, population 850,000, very little space. They got up to 80% diversion by 2011. It's kind of plateaued off since then. That's why we need to kick in more industrial responsibility. But going beyond 80%, I mean, I think most people will be happy with 80%, but as it's about zero waste, we've got to say, well, what are you going to do after that? Well, what you do is to build a residual separation and biological stabilization facility in front of the landfill. They've done this in Nova Scotia. Here you see a picture, the green circle. Notice the road only goes to the separation facility. The road does not go to the landfill. So the truck drivers cannot dump their trash or residuals directly into the landfill. It has to be separated first. Here you see an aerial view, and you can see the landfill in the background. The bags come in, they are opened with a bag opener, which minimizes breakage of the items. Well-protected workers then separate things out. They separate more recyclables, bulky items, more toxics, and the dirty organic fraction is not touched. That goes all the way to the end of the conveyor belt where it's shredded and then goes into long troughs, which are turned each day with this turning device. And it stays there for about 18 days of composting before it goes out and is cured. The idea is to stabilize this dirty organic fraction before it does dangerous damage to the underground, producing methane and leachate. And in addition, there are well-established anaerobic digestion systems which can do this. If you want an enclosed system, you can do it and make methane, biogas. And this is what the landfill looks like in Nova Scotia. And that stuff you see there is the stabilized organic fraction going on top of the landfill. And lastly, we need a landfill. The difference between this landfill is what I've advocated since 1985. Ever since I learned that the EPA said all landfills eventually leak, I realized that if you can't control what comes out of a landfill with engineers, you've got to control what goes into the landfill with your community and with the separation facility. So that's the rationale, a controlled input landfill where we can minimize the raw organic fraction and we can minimize the toxics. There we are, there's those 10 steps again. What I like about this, it begins with everybody with source separation, but by the time you get down to steps 5, 6, and possibly 9, you are bringing in some of the brightest minds in our society. You're bringing in the professors and the students, we hope, Tom, we hope. And we're also hopefully reaching out to industrial designers, as Rossano did in Italy with the engineers from Lavassa. They're very exciting possibilities. This is a very positive movement. We're saying yes to so many things. We're saying yes to all those things. And at the end of the day, this isn't sustainability. It isn't a completely sustainable society, but we can link. We can link zero waste to sustainable architecture, especially through the building materials angle, the sustainable architecture, to sustainable agriculture through composting. We've built in education into the whole model, and there are many other things too. So summarizing, zero waste is better for the economy, more jobs, more business opportunities. It's better for our health, less toxics. Don't we know that in Endicott? It's better for our universities, more meaning, more relevance, more hands-on, getting connected to the biggest issues confronting our society. It's better for the planet and more sustainable, and it's better for our children because we are offering them more hope for the future. And that is so important. If you think about it, every day we are telling, one way or another, we're telling our kids that there's no future for them. We tell them about global warming. We tell them about the ozone damage. We talk about the loss of rainforests. We talk about the loss of species. We tell them about plastics in the ocean. And I'm guilty of all this. But it must be very depressing as a young person. I had the alarm clock on here to make sure I didn't go on too long. It's depressing. But this 10 steps to zero waste and to a circular economy, it's a blueprint for hope. Hope for our kids and hopefully for other people in the community. And what it needs is what we use to beat the incinerator. We had to bring everybody together, rich and poor together, old and young together, black and white together. Everybody had to come together and say no. Now we want to do the same thing, bring everybody together from industry, from the council, from our universities, and from the community, bring everybody together to say yes, together, yes. And we got, with this COVID going on, we got plenty of time to plan this and find out more about what we have already. I'm sure we'll be told, and what more we can do. My wife is anxious for me to mention there's a very good recycling law in the works in our state capital right now. There was an excellent article in the New York Times magazine section on this new recycling law. And last Sunday in the Press Republican, there was an op-ed from the director of solid waste. I think her name is Debbie Smith, head of solid waste, Broome County. And she explains this. It's very exciting. The whole notion is that there's so many costs for recycling now, especially with China getting out of the market and stop taking all our crappy plastics. We have problems of keeping our recycling programs. And rather than give up and say stopping recycling, they are saying we've got to get industry to finance recycling of their products. And the worse products that they make, the more money they're going to have to put into the kitty for us to look after. Obviously, if the products can be reused, we won't charge them very much. If the materials can be recycled, we'll charge them something, but not as much as we would for landfilling, and so on. So they're creative economic tools. So have a look at that waste law, recycling law that's on the books.